Most people are taught the same lesson from childhood. Ignore the insult, walk away. Be the bigger person. Stay calm and rise above it. On the surface, it sounds noble, mature even. But if you study history closely, an uncomfortable pattern begins to emerge. The men who built empires, controlled kingdoms, shaped nations, and commanded loyalty from thousands rarely followed that advice in the way we are told to today. They did not pretend insults had no meaning. And they certainly did not confuse silence with strength, because they understood something most people never learn. Every act of disrespect is a test. Not always a loud one. Sometimes it arrives as a joke at your expense, a public dismissal, a broken promise, a subtle challenge disguised as harmless banter. But beneath every challenge lies the same question. What happens if I cross this line? The answer determines how people treat you from that moment forward. History's most powerful figures understood that status is rarely lost in a single dramatic moment. It erodes through tolerated offenses, unanswered challenges, and repeated signals that there is no cost for crossing you. Yet they also understood something equally important. A man who reacts immediately has already surrendered control. Anyone can explode in anger. Anyone can trade insults. Anyone can allow another person to dictate the timing of their response. Power operates differently. The most dangerous men in history answered disrespect with patience, precision, and strategy. They refused to play by the rules their opponents created. Instead, they rewrote the rules entirely. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He observed that power is not maintained through emotion, but through calculated action. Not through impulsive retaliation, but through responses so deliberate that they reshape the behavior of everyone watching. Tonight, we'll examine the principles that separated rulers from followers, operators from victims, and powerful men from those constantly forced to defend themselves. Because the real question is not whether disrespect should be answered. The real question is how. Doctrine 1. The delayed verdict. The first mistake most men make when they are disrespected is believing they must respond immediately. Someone insults them in public, questions their competence, embarrasses them in front of others, and almost instantly they feel the pressure to react. That pressure is not accidental. It is part of the attack. The person who provokes you is not only challenging your position, they are trying to control the timing of your response. They want you emotional. They want you angry. They want you operating inside a window they created. Most people step into that trap without realizing it. They fire back immediately. They defend themselves. They argue. They try to win the exchange. But the moment you react emotionally, you are no longer in control. The other person has chosen the battlefield, chosen the timing, and chosen the emotional state in which you will fight. Powerful men refuse this invitation. They understand that an insult is not a command. It does not require an instant answer. History offers countless examples of this principle, but few are more striking than Cosimo de' Medici. When his political enemies seized power in Florence, they publicly humiliated him, arrested him, and forced him into exile. To everyone watching, it appeared that he had lost. The crowd expected outrage. They expected resistance. They expected revenge. Instead, Cosimo left quietly. No dramatic speeches, no public threats, no emotional outbursts. For a while, it looked as though he had accepted defeat. But while his enemies celebrated, Cosimo was studying the board. He understood something they didn't. Time is a weapon. From exile, he began making careful moves behind the scenes. He leveraged relationships, called in debts, and applied pressure where it would hurt most. Not immediately, not emotionally, strategically. Within a year, the coalition that had removed him began collapsing under its own weight. The very men who forced him out found themselves isolated and weakened. Soon afterward, Cosimo returned to Florence stronger than before. While many of his enemies were driven into exile themselves, the insult had been answered, just not on their timeline. This is the lesson. The strongest response is rarely the fastest one. Modern psychology supports what powerful men understood centuries ago. When people experience humiliation, anger, or threat, their judgment narrows, They become impulsive, short-sighted, emotional. In that state, people make decisions they regret, they burn bridges, reveal their intentions, and hand their opponents information they should never have received. The first few moments after being disrespected are often the worst possible time to make a decision. Yet that is exactly when most people choose to act. The powerful do the opposite. They observe, they collect information, they ask questions. What was this person trying to accomplish? Who witnessed it? What weakness were they attempting to exploit? And most importantly, what outcome do I actually want? Because the goal is not to win an argument, the goal is to strengthen your position. Sometimes that response comes the next day, sometimes weeks later, sometimes months later. But when it arrives, it is calculated, controlled, and effective. Hot anger burns quickly. Cold anger builds leverage. One creates noise, the other creates consequences. And that is why history remembers the strategist while forgetting the man who lost control of himself in the heat of the moment. The first rule of power is simple. Never allow another person to decide when you respond. The moment they control the timing, they control the game. And powerful men never play by someone else's clock. The asymmetric reply. The second lesson powerful men understood is this. Never fight an opponent on the level they chose. Most people respond to disrespect by matching energy. Someone insults them, so they insult back. Someone tries to embarrass them, so they try to embarrass them harder. Someone attacks their reputation, so they rush to defend it. But there is a hidden weakness in this approach. The moment you respond at the same level, you accept the battlefield your opponent created. You are no longer leading. You are reacting. And a person who is constantly reacting is easy to control. Machiavelli understood that power was not about proving you could fight every battle. It was about making sure your enemies understood that you were operating from a different position entirely. A king does not become powerful by winning every argument with his subjects. He becomes powerful by making his subjects understand the difference between their position and his. This principle can be seen in the actions of Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. During his reign, a young nobleman named Cinna was discovered plotting against him. Augustus had everything he needed to destroy him. The evidence was clear, the betrayal was real, and punishment would have been expected. Most leaders would have chosen the obvious path, public execution, a warning to everyone else, a display of dominance. But Augustus chose something far more unexpected. He called Cinna to a private meeting. Instead of immediately destroying him, Augustus revealed that he knew everything, every detail, every name, every part of the plan. He made Cinna understand the seriousness of what he had done. Then Augustus did something that completely changed the dynamic. He showed mercy, not weak mercy, strategic mercy. He communicated something far more powerful than anger. I have the ability to destroy you, and I am choosing not to. That moment transformed an enemy into an ally. Cinna became one of Augustus's supporters, and the story spread throughout Rome. But the message people remembered was not simply that Augustus was forgiving. The deeper message was this: Augustus was not threatened by his enemies. He was above them, and that is the foundation of an asymmetric response. The goal is not always to hit back harder. Sometimes the strongest move is responding in a way the other person never expected. Because unexpected responses create uncertainty, and uncertainty creates power. Look at history again. When Queen Elizabeth I faced insults and attacks from powerful rivals, she did not waste her energy trading personal arguments. She did not chase every accusation. She answered through action. Her response was not a speech, it was preparation. It was strategy. It was the strengthening of her position until her enemies were forced to acknowledge reality. This is the difference between emotional reaction and calculated response. An emotional person asks, how do I make them feel what I felt? A strategic person asks, what action changes the situation in my favor? The first person is chasing revenge. The second person is building power. Disrespect is often designed to pull you downward. It wants you angry. It wants you distracted. It wants you fighting over words while ignoring the bigger game. The powerful refuse the trap. They understand that not every attack deserves the same response. Some situations require silence, some require distance, some require a move so effective that the original insult becomes irrelevant. The only response that truly weakens you is the predictable one, the one your opponent expected, the one that proves they can press a button and control your emotions. Power begins when people realize they cannot easily predict your next move. Because the person who cannot be controlled cannot be easily defeated. And that is why the most powerful men in history rarely responded with equal energy. They responded with strategy. The most powerful men in history understood one thing: disrespect is not defeated by emotion, but by control. They did not allow others to choose their reactions, their timing, or their position. True power is the ability to remain calculated, move with purpose, and make every response serve a greater strategy.